the theories of evolution. This is the core. Now it's like we are starting what you call evolutions. Number one. The first one is Lamaker's theory, which we call the Lamarckism. This guy was there in 1744 to 1829. No one was born by this time, and no one was thought of. His theory, if you look at it, many people try to criticize it, but for me and the other scientists, they see that his theory was very important because it gave us a benchmark, how life is evolving from different organisms. Number two is Darwinism, or Darwinist theory. Charles Darwin from 1809 to 1882. These guys, they did a great job. If they didn't do the great job they did, we wouldn't have seen that evolution. Why is evolution taking place the same way it is happening? So let's look at the Lamarckism. This guy was a Christian, like a bishop. Yeah, this guy was very clever because he started the story. Okay, this guy says that. Number one, this guy Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck started his life from 1744 to 1829. How many years are those? Almost 70-something years, I think so. If I'm not mistaken, I'm not a mathematician. This guy Lamaker used the laws, two laws. The first law is the law of use and disuse of a structure. Law of use and disuse of a structure. Number two, he also used the law of inheritance of acquired characters. So he said that in the law of use and disuse of a structure, organisms, an organism uses a structure or organ more frequently, it becomes bigger and developed, becomes bigger, or it becomes better developed. If you use the structure, it becomes more developed. The more you use the structure, the more it becomes bigger and stronger. And then that is the use. If you use the structure, it becomes bigger and stronger. If you don't use the structure, it becomes smaller and finally disappears. Quote me right. Not all structures. There are some structures which you don't need to use and disuse. Just make them disuse. Don't use them. The more you use the structure, so you have to use the structures. That's what he says. The more you use the structure, the more it becomes bigger and stronger. If you don't do that, it becomes smaller and then finally disappears. So he says that as organisms uses structure or organ more frequently, yes, the more you use the structure. This, at first it was like this. So now this started. The grass was low. So the one this grass, if the grass was like this giraffe will not develop its neck. But if the grass was like this and then the drought came up and then you find out that the only grass is the foliage is on the top of the tree, so now the giraffe starts to stretch their necks. So when they stretch the neck, as they stretching the neck becomes longer and longer and longer. So it's using this part. It's using this part so that at least the neck is growing and growing. And then this character does not stop there. It is being inherited to the next generation. So if you see it, says that the structure is being used. If you look at this, the structure is being used frequently as it gets the food on the top of the tree. So frequently, many times, so it becomes better developed. So it becomes longer. If you look at it, this and this, so now it becomes longer and then it becomes bigger. So that now the offsprings, they have the same kind of character. For example, if you're a bodybuilder, yes, and then you make muscles, you want to have a kid, the kid is going to be born with the muscles. The muscles, the kid doesn't need to go to the gym. No. It's going to be born with the muscles. The more you use the structure, the more it becomes bigger and stronger. And then these characters are being transferred to the next generation. That's what he says. However, we will see that even you see that there are some loopholes which are there, but it gave us at least a basis how to explain these ideas. And then we are saying that if the organ does not use, now that this is the disuse, this is the use, this is the disuse, does not use a structure or organ frequently, it becomes smaller, less developed, or reduced in the size and may disappear altogether. So if you remember when you're talking about the theories of evolution, we talked about embryology, and then we said that we had a tail. And even if you go to birth, you'll find out that you had a tail. If you try to check behind your, you know what I'm talking about. Yes, you'll find out that you have a tail. But because we didn't use that tail, it became smaller and smaller and then disappeared. That's how Lamaker is trying to explain that if you don't use the structure, it becomes smaller and smaller and finally disappears. So that is the law of use and disuse. And then the law of inheritance of acquired character, that's the number 2. He says that characters developed during the life of an individual can be passed on to the next generation. For example, like now you see that these giraffes, what happened? The giraffe was stretching the neck. So this giraffe will give rise to this. This neck will be longer. As is longer, so it passes the genes from here again to the next generation. The characters which you obtain during lifetime, you pass them to the next generation. If you get an accident and then the leg is cut, then you're going to produce a baby who is not having a leg. That's what he says, that the characters you obtain during the lifetime, you pass them to the next generation. So that is Lamaker's theory. They can ask you, describe how Lamaker explained how did the giraffe came up with long necks. Describe how Lamaker explained how tigers came up with stripes. Describe how Lamaker explained how elephants came up with long trunks. You can use law of use and disuse, and then the inheritance of acquired character. Make sure that when you're explaining, you have those 2 there. Here is a question. Let's look at it. Account. Write an account showing how Lamaker would explain the development of longer necks in the modern giraffe. 5 marks. Here is the memo. Number 1, all giraffes had short necks. We saw them that all of them had short necks originally. That's how we mark now. We give you a tick. All giraffes had short necks. It means that there was no variation among these giraffes. All the giraffes had short necks. That's number 1. Number 2, these giraffes frequently stretched their necks. As they are stretching their necks, yes, they are trying to reach the food on the trees. Yes. Number 3, they did this to reach the leaves that were available only higher up on the trees. So as they're stretching their necks, they are trying to get the food on the trees. As a result, their necks became longer. Their necks became longer. Yes. And then the characteristics now, that is the law of use. From here up to here, that is the law of use and disuse. Yes. And then now, the giraffes have obtained the long necks, but you want to pass these characters to the next generation. He says that the characteristics of the long necks acquired in this way were passed on to the next generation. So this point proves the inheritance of the acquired characters. So all giraffes had short necks, meaning that there was no variation. Number 2, the giraffes frequently stretched their necks. As they stretch their necks, they did this. Why did they stretch their necks? They did this to reach the leaves that were available on higher, only higher up on the trees. And then as a result, the necks became longer. Yes. And then these characteristics are meaning that the long necks acquired during lifetime were passed on to the next generation. So now, after that, eventually all the giraffes had long necks. That's how he explained how did the giraffe came up with long necks. But if you look at Darwin, Darwin theory, he explained it using a different angle, but there are some points at least which are a little bit similar. It means that Darwin used the idea of Lamarck to at least to develop the theory of Darwinism using natural selection. Explain the Lamaker's theory. Why? Explain why Lamaker's theory was rejected. Explain. If you look at it, do you think Lamaker's theory is correct? It could be correct in some instances. Is it that when you use the structure, it becomes bigger and stronger? Yes, some structures, they become bigger and stronger. If you look at the mouth, yes, every day you use your mouth, does it become bigger and stronger? Does it? Oh, if it becomes bigger and stronger, then it means that his theory is right. But if you look at the people who are doing the muscle building, if you go to the gym, start to use the muscles, you do the activities, do you have the muscles? Yes, the more you use the structure, the more it becomes bigger and stronger. But do you pass on all the characters you obtain during lifetime? No, you don't pass all the characters. The physical, the phenotypic characters you obtain, you don't pass them to the next generation unless there is a mutation. So basically, that's it. We are saying that he says that number one, there is not enough evidence to show that acquired characteristics are inherited. It's not that when you obtain a character during your lifetime, then you pass it to the next generation. It's not like that. Number two, organisms do not evolve because they want to evolve. Lamaker says that if the giraffe wants to get the long neck, so it just has to stretch, then it becomes longer, the neck becomes longer. If it wants to have a shorter neck, then the neck becomes short, then you get. If you want to become tall, you just have to jump like a frog, and then you become tall. So if you are tall and then you want to become short, you just have to squeeze yourself, then you become. So that's what he's saying that. And then you produce kids who are tall, or you produce kids who are short. If you want a character, you just have to practice it and then you get it. So we say that no, organisms don't evolve because they want to. No. They just have to evolve because of natural selection. Then number two, organisms don't evolve because they want to evolve. No. Organisms evolve because of other factors. So basically, that's it. Okay, they're saying that Darwinism. So we have seen Lamarckism versus now Darwinism. Let's look at Darwinism. We say that Charles Darwin is one of the great scientists. So this guy existed in 1809 to 1882, almost still 70-something years. So these guys, they stayed longer, né? They stayed longer. Okay. His theory is based on natural selection, survival for the fittest. Guys, this is natural selection, and natural selection is happening everywhere. Survival for the fittest. I repeat, his theory is based on natural selection. Natural selection means survival for the fittest. The best suit in an environment will survive, and those which are not suit will die, and then they will extinct. So now we are saying that organisms, he says, his theory, which is based on natural selection, it goes like this. He says that organisms produce a large number of offspring. You see, check these rats. They produce a large number of offspring. Have you ever asked a question that you have never seen butcheries for dogs, but you see butcheries for cows? But cows produce one kid or offspring per 9 months. Dogs, they produce 6 or 7 per 6 months, for example. But why is it that every day you slaughter cows, a lot of them? Every day you don't slaughter dogs. Why is it that you don't see a lot of dogs, but cows are a lot? Why is it like that? So we are saying that yes, though dogs produce a large number of offsprings, Why is it that they are not abundant everywhere? There must be other factors. It means that natural selection must happen or must apply on these dogs so that the number are reduced. You have a lot of rats. Produces a number of rats, but where are the rats? You don't see them everywhere. There must be some factors which can which bring about the reduction in the availability of these rats everywhere. So we are saying that organisms produce a large number of offspring. So if you don't want to produce, make sure that you produce. So okay, there is a great deal of variation among the offspring. So look at this. This one, you see this color, is another color, is another color, is another color. All these are coming from the same father, same mother, but different characteristics, meaning that there is variation among organisms of the same species. So number one, organisms produce a large number of offspring. That's number one. Number two, there is a great deal of variation among the offspring. Number three, he says that some have favorable characteristics and some don't have. Some have favorable characteristics, yes, meaning that those characters, they can help them to survive. Some don't have favorable characteristics. There are so many kids who want to join our class, but they don't have favorable characteristics. They don't have the data. Maybe they don't have the nice phone to connect, but others do have. Those who have, they have connected and they are in class with us, even if they are home. And those who don't have, they are not in class, so they are wiped out. That is what we call natural selection. So now we are saying that when there is a chance in environmental condition, so when the environmental conditions changes, so when there is a change in environmental condition, or even competition, there is competition for food, for example, competition for space. Yes, what happens? Organisms with a favorable characteristic will survive. So the organisms with a favorable characteristic will survive. And organisms without favorable characteristics will not survive. So it means that those without favorable characteristics, those with unfavorable characteristics, they will die. And the organisms with favorable characteristics survive, while organisms without favorable characteristics, they will die. Those which have nice phones with internet, they will connect. They will survive, and those without, then for them they will die, meaning that they will be wiped out from the system. They won't study. You see now how natural selection does? Those who are favorable, they continue with life. And then they're saying that organisms that survive reproduce, because now they have the chance to survive. Then they reproduce, and then they pass on the allele to the next generation. So that it means that favorable characteristics will make people to survive and reproduce, and then the characters which are good will be passed to the next generation. So I repeat, he said these are the observations he used. Number one, organisms produce large number of offspring. So whenever you explain, you must include large number of offspring. There is a great deal of variation. Whenever you explain this, you must talk about this great deal of variation. So in this case, if they say that giraffes, explain giraffes, you will talk about variation. Variation. Some have long necks, some have short necks. Some have stripes, some have no stripes. So that's the variation. Some are big, some are small. That's the variation. There is a great deal of variation among the organisms. Some have favorable characteristics and some don't have. So for example, if I want a giraffe with long neck, those which have long necks, they will survive. They have favorable characteristic. That's the characteristic the nature wants. And then if there is a change in environmental conditions whereby the food is only on the top trees, yes, what happens? Now the giraffe with the long necks, which have the favorable characteristics, they will survive because they will eat the food from the tall trees. And those with the short necks, they will die because they won't have what to eat. They have unfavorable characteristic. And then you are saying that giraffes that survive, yes, those which survive will reproduce in numbers. They will reproduce and then they pass their genes to the next generation. It means that now the giraffes with the long necks will pass their genes to the next generation because they have food. when we come back, we are going to look at this question, account or write an account showing how Darwin would explain the development of the long neck in the modern giraffe. How, yes, we saw how Lamaker, for the use and disuse of the structure and inheritance of acquired character, use those laws to explain that. But now Darwin used the concept of natural selection. Those with the favorable characteristics will survive, and those without favorable characteristics, they will die. So how did he use this concept to explain this?